Okay, thank you.
这个哲学，对，这样听听不同的人，对，我没去过，我去过中国，但是只有一天而已，对，然后这里在有里还有在剑桥，但是不想吃，没有，哦，现在，他想吃个现在的课程的老师。对呀，太好了，对呀，你讲的，对，你讲话对吧？是个太好。
看字，所以我才会就是无论如何，这样子看，
然后这个还有家人，对，家人就是一个传染病，这个传染病，对的。就有时候我们觉这个是必须如果要说有一点会讲究有了比喻，这个喷的，对，如果有比喻是这样的，我觉得是这样的。
Everything is fine? Not so good, you know, not far from the No, I didn't say. You see, I was thinking that you were saying some of the words. I didn't want to say. I said that singing from the heart, and I feel forbidden because I'm Jewish.
现场呢，中间有一个小组，没有，OK，我知道在剑桥，Yeah，他只有一个小组而已。
这个上镜吧，
因为我可以想一下，我在读的人是谁？因为面对面的，Lisa 对，我以前在美国对，他
因为以后会
来。
但是我不知道是可能哪个。
对不对？每个月一次。
Lisa 对，他以前在美国。
Hello, so yeah, we're just about to 我们要上课，我们要开始。Okay. Another group home session.
Another group home.
Yeah. I'll have to check your vouchers afterwards just to make sure. So actually, today is pretty grammar heavy. So yeah, hence why I've got some coke for myself. So what we'll do today is just do a quick homework review and have a look at Zai. And then tense versus aspect, a perfect aspect le, and then le versus shi de, and then finally just there's a particular phrase that we can use with ling, which is a useful phrase for drawing contrast. So first of all, the homework review. So this is like 2 weeks ago, so it might not even be in your memory anymore. But the homework from 2 weeks ago was in paragraph 11 of next week's Watchtower, which was 2 weeks ago. Find the 不在 phrase and what does it mean? Did anyone have a chance to do it? It's okay if you didn't. I can tell by the grimaces. Yeah. That's okay. Let me put this down.
So the sentence was 让自己不再一直想着难题。So 让自己不再一直 already.
Give it off. Give him 30 seconds.
So what is it? So the English translation of that was some sort of diversion to escape our problems. But just to, if I were to directly translate that into English, it would be to make oneself stop thinking about problems. So remember, 在 means again, 不再 means not again or no longer. So it's like saying make oneself to not in the future think about problems. So thank you. So is that okay? Does that make sense what that sentence means? So actually, this is an important point because I need to make a correction. So 在 can only be used for future actions. So that's why, and here's where the correction comes. So remember we did this comparison with what Jehovah could say about Adam and Jesus at different stages. So before they existed, Jehovah could say, "Oh, Tom and put some down." So we could say that about both of them. And when he created them, about both of them, he could say, "Oh, Tom and some Then when Adam and Jesus died, only about Adam could we say, "Ta bu zai cun zai." Well, because it doesn't just mean he no longer exists; it means he will never again exist in the future. So it's saying not again exist ever. So he will not do that forever again. So that's why we can use it for Adam, but not for Jesus, because he died and then of course he did exist. Does that make sense? So just that little, yeah, Simon.
So like you couldn't like 他永远不会不在 or that so you could just say 不在存在 and that would mean 永远
Yeah, never.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to do that correction, and then we'll go on to two things are going to get tense.
Oh dear.
It's all downhill from here. So what we'll do first of all, because we always say Chinese doesn't have tense, and that's true. So we'll just compare what Chinese does have, which is aspect, and we'll just talk about what those two things mean. So tense tells us where a verb is located in time. Is it in the past, present, future? Where did it happen in the time stream? Whereas aspect tells us what stage a verb is in. Is it completed? Is it in progress? Or is it continuous? And one way to kind of look at that is if you just see this word by itself, what tense would you be tempted to say it is?
Present.
Yeah, present. And then what aspect would you say? Simon?
Progressive or continuous?
Yeah, so that's the thing. So it is looking at it, it's like a toss-up between progressive and continuous. It is progressive, and then next week we'll talk about the difference between those two. So it is progressive aspect, but actually there is no tense. Yeah. So the way we get tense in English, so the aspect progressive is the ing. That tells us it's progressive aspect, but there's nothing that tells us it's the tense. What would tell us it's present tense is this: I am eating. So real briefly, this kind of verb here is called a participle. So we pair this kind of verb, the am verb, with the main verb, and that's what overall tells us what the tense is. So you notice it's still progressive aspect, and the am tells us it's present tense. And if we go back to the past, I was tells us it's the past, eating, but it's still progressive. And then the future, I will be, that tells us it's the future, eating. And so it's still progressive. So you notice how the word eating doesn't change form, past, present, or future, but was, will be, does. So that's what happens in English. It changes according to the tense to tell us where the verb is located in time. But for Chinese, first of all, remember this is called a participle. Notice in Chinese it just doesn't have it. So not only does it not change, it's not even there. Zai is how we know a verb is progressive. So zai is like the ing. You notice, regardless of whether we're trying to say I was eating, I am eating, I will be eating, it's 我在吃饭, 我在吃饭, 我在吃饭. So for example, if you called me up right now and said, well, how come you didn't take my call this morning? I said, 今天早上你打给我的时候我在吃饭. Oh, sorry, when you called me this morning, I was eating. You said, okay, well, what are you doing now? I said, oh, 我还在吃饭. I'm eating. And he said, okay, well, I'll call you in 2 hours' time. I said, 2个小时后我可能还在吃饭. So at that point, we wonder what kind of banquet is going on here. But the point is, regardless of past, present, or future, I would still be using 在吃饭, 在吃饭, 在吃饭. So this is the progressive aspect. So we'll talk a little bit more about progressive and continuous next week, but that was just a comparison of tense and aspect. So does that make sense so far? Yeah. Okay. So we'll get into that some more by looking at what is called the perfect aspect, which we form using no. So I don't know if you can see that, I'll just read it out. So what is perfect aspect? So we use perfect aspect to look back from a specific time and indicate that action is complete in relation to that time. And so for this reason, it's also known as complete aspect. So let's look at 3 ways that perfect aspect can be made, just to bring this out. So past perfect. So remember, look back from a specific time and indicate that an action is complete in relation to that time. She had gone out, so she could not answer the phone. So maybe I should have put like a very specific time. So let's say I'm talking about yesterday at 8:30 in the morning. Yesterday at 8:30. So I'm looking back from that specific time and I'm saying she had gone out. Present perfect, she has gone out, so she cannot answer the phone. So now I'm looking back from this time and I'm saying the action was completed. What can we do for future? Future perfect, she will have gone out by 8:30 tomorrow, say, so she will not be able to answer the phone. So now I go to the future and I look back from that specific time and indicate that the action will have been completed. So this is what we mean by perfect aspect. So you notice what we've had to do, had gone out, has gone out, and will have gone out. So we had to change it to make those sentences. But notice what else we had to do. Could not, cannot, will not be able to. So for learners of English, this is a complete nightmare. So they have to learn all of these forms and one of these forms too. But in Chinese, it's much more simple. So 当时他已经出去了，所以不能接电话. So we'll go through these in a bit more detail in a while. But that means she had gone out, so she couldn't answer the phone. 他已经出去了，所以不能接电话. She has gone out, so she cannot answer the phone. 8点半，她应该已经出去了，所以不能接电话. That would mean she would have gone out by 8:30, so she will not be able to answer the phone. So the first thing to note is in all of these 3 sentences, you notice from 已经 onwards, it's all the same sentence. So 已经出去了，所以不能接电话. 已经出去了，所以不能接电话. In the same way, 已经出去了，所以不能接电话. So nothing changes in that part of the sentence. But what we do, even though there's no tense, we just add some adverbs to show whether it's in the past, present or future. So for this one, all we've added is 当时, and that means at that time. And it can only be used for past events. So I can't say, if I'm talking about next week, Wednesday, I can't say 当时. If I said last week, Wednesday, then I can say 当时 because it's for past events. So as soon as I say 当时, I've gone back to a specific time in the past, and then I'll say 他已经出去了. I indicate that the action is complete in relation to that time. Here, I'm in the present, so I don't need to add anything. 他已经出去了，所以不能接电话. So that just means this. For the future, I add two adverbs. So the first one is a time adverb, 8点半. And then I'll say 他应该已经出去了. So it's a shame because I haven't seen any dictionary which explains the kind of secondary meaning of this. So we all know it as, 基督徒应该, they should do something, we must do something. But it also has the meaning of should be or should have. So for example, it's like saying, by 8:30 she should have already gone out. Not must, it's not an imperative, it's like most likely. So when I say I need this second one, because if I just said 8点半他已经出去了, it's unclear whether I'm talking about 8点半 in the past or in the future. But as soon as I say 他应该 will be 他 most likely will have gone out. Does that make sense? So I realised I was a bit speedy. So at this point, are there any questions? Rachel?
I was wondering if there are any other words that you could use for the future perfect aspect.
Yeah, so you could say something like, so 他应该已经出去了 would mean she's most likely gone out. But you might not be 100% sure. So you could just switch 应该 with 一定. So say like, every morning, 8 o'clock, like clockwork, this person goes out. So you could say, 8点半他一定已经出去了. So that would mean she will have definitely gone out by then. So just as long as you have something there, then the sentence will work. 可能他可能已经出去了, suppose.
We use like 那时候.
Yeah. So you use 当时 for the past. You can use 那时候 for the past or the future. So. 他出去了.
I'm getting dragged.
我现在马上出去。
So instead of well, if you use 那时, you still have to say 应该 because 那时 can be
Just an extra
past
word.
or past.
Bad.
Sean, do you have a question?
So yeah, you said 应该 can also, we say should, but you said it also can mean should be.
Yeah, I think by 8:30 she should have gone out. Yeah,
Okay.
as in she most likely will have.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay. So is that okay? So just one more thing from. Let's have one of this now. Anyway. What do you think is the difference between this past simple, she went out, and present perfect, she has gone out? So first of all, there is no aspect here. So remember, aspect was formed with what we call a participle, like have, will be, will have. So there's none of that here. She went out. So it's just simple. But this is, again, is something very confusing for learners of English. So when I was teaching English online, you get people mixed up. So if I would say to someone, "Oh, where's your brother?" or whatever it is, and and I'd say, oh, she has went out, he has went out. And I'd say, oh no, he has gone out. And they'll be like, oh yes, yes, after dinner, he has gone out. And I'd say, oh no, after dinner, he went out.
It's confusing.
It's confusing, isn't it? So we use this to simply just report the past, and basically the past stays in the past, and we can do it for a series of actions. So I could say, she ate dinner, put on her coat, and went out. But I wouldn't say she ate dinner, put on her coat, and has gone out. I use this if I want to talk about the past, but connect it to the present. So right now I'm calling her. I wouldn't say, oh, she went out grammatically. I would say, oh, she has gone out. So I'm connecting that with the present. Another example, if we use eating, past simple would just be I ate. I ate, and then I went out. But present perfect would be I have eaten. And I might need to connect that to the present, like if I go to drop something off in your home, you know, I've got some soup on, do you want, oh, I have eaten. So I'm connecting the past to the present. So the way we do that in Chinese is it's still aspects for both ones. So ta chu chu le, we put le there, and we're just simply saying that chu chu verb is completed. So I could say ta chi fan, 穿上鞋子就出去. She ate, put on the shoes, and went out. And if we want to say she has gone out, all we do is add 已经, which means already. So 她已经出去了 means she has gone out. So this I wouldn't say 她吃饭穿鞋子已经出去了. So that would be just like we wouldn't say that in English. So that's the difference. So the reason I mention this is, I don't know if you remember, but way back in lesson 1, and we're talking about, remember double up? Remember those days? We were so young back then. And when we talked about how someone has been married and they continue to be married, and I think it was Ian that said, oh, we would say 已经, and that's because we're saying they have been married for 20 years. So we're connecting the past 20 years to the present. But if we were to say they were married for 20 years, that's a different meaning. It could mean that it's kind of. So we just simply add 已经. Okay, any questions? Okay. So I mentioned, so that's the perfect aspect of love. And then, what we're doing now is comparing le with shi and de. So we first need to understand what we use shi and de for. And here's an example. This is called a cleft sentence. It's Steve that I'm looking for. And what is a cleft sentence? Cleft just means it's been split. So it is a sentence that has been cleft or split so as to put the focus on one part of it, which is the new information. So we can understand this better if we look at the regular version of this sentence. I'm looking for Steve. So imagine if you're all in a room and I open the door. I haven't said anything, no context whatsoever. Which one of these sentences am I likely to say?
First one.
Yeah, the first one. Like, I'm looking for Steve. It would be weird if I said, it's Steve that I'm looking for. But what about if I come in and I look around and I say, oh, he's not here. And then one of you says, oh, Daniel's in the other room. Then I might say, oh no, it's Steve that I'm looking for. So why? Because you already had some information, that is, I'm looking for somebody. Then I use the cleft sentence to introduce new information, i.e. it's Steve I'm looking for. And here's another example. We need to buy new batteries, and what we need to do is buy new batteries. So say if I were to go to someone waving a remote control, what we need to do is buy new batteries. This would be they have no information, no context. But it would make sense if I just went to, oh, we need to buy new batteries. But imagine if I hear this other person, we look at the control, it's not working, I open it up and the batteries are all dirty, and I say, what we need to do is buy new batteries. So we had some information that there's something wrong with the remote, something wrong with the batteries, and I use this clef sentence to introduce focus, new information, we need to buy new batteries. So the way that we do this in Chinese, it's not exactly the same, but it's the same principle. That is when we use shi and de. So it almost makes sense because it's like a frame, and then we put something in the middle of it. When you frame something, you put focus on it. So we put what we want to focus in the middle of shi and de. So let's have a look at this video, which explains, because now we're going to talk about le versus shi and de.
What did you do this morning? We drove to the park. 我们开车去公园了. Right? A simple le construction answering what you did. But if the question is how did you drive to the park, then you cannot say 我们开车去了. You need to say 我们是开车去的. 我们是开车去的. Just remember, whenever you want to specify or answer how or where or when you did something, you must use the 是 the construction. You cannot just simply use le.
Interesting. So if we just break this down, okay, so remember, shi and de, we use it to focus on new information. And in the video, you mentioned when you want to specify where, when, and how a verb was performed. And we can also add to that who, why, and what. So let's just have a look at that question. What did you do yesterday? So this is, when we say focus on new information, it's over old information. With this, if I ask this question, I have no information whatsoever, not even old information. It's just a very general what. So it's different to this what, which we'll compare in a while. Well, I don't even know if you did something yesterday. So here, I'll just be asking you to tell me a verb that you completed, and that will be it. So you could say, 我去了公园. So you just use le to tell me that the verb 去 is completed. But if I then were to say, where did you go yesterday? Normally that means that I suspect that you went somewhere, but I don't know where. So it would be incorrect to say 我去了公园. Here we use the 是 and de. So the information I have is that you went somewhere. The information I don't have is where you went. And so 是 de focuses on new information. And so we would say 我是去公园. Sorry. Is that what you guessed?
Yeah, that's what I typed it. Yeah, that was my guess. What the type?
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, no, good,
That's
good.
That's good.
So you see what we've done? We've put 去公园 in between 是 and de to put the focus on it, because that's the new information. And what about if I said, oh, when did you go to the park? So what's the old information? It's the fact that you went to the park. What's the new information that I don't know? It's when. So would this be correct? 我昨天去了. What should we say instead?
昨天去的。
Yes. Yeah, that's it. 我是昨天去的.
我是昨天。
Did you say without the 是? Yeah, so actually that does happen. So sometimes they do drop the 是. 昨天去的. But the whole kind of structure is 我是昨天去的. Excellent. So how about if someone says, how did you get to the park? Old information, I know that you went to the park. New information is how. So I drove there. So drove is 开车. So how would we say that? Yeah, lovely. 我是开车去的. So not 我开车去了. We're adding additional information. if we wanted to ask, who did you go to the park with? Well, at which point it becomes an interrogation. Who did you go to the park with? How would you say, I went with some friends? Okay, I hear the correct whispering, I think. Yeah. I went with some friends. 我是跟一些朋友去的. Is that what you whispered?
Yeah.
What did you put?
No, I missed the each year.
我是跟朋友去的.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Yeah. Use water.
Yeah.
More water.
Why did you go there? Why did you go to the park? So gain all information. Went to the park. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because so if I said 我跟一些朋友去的 it's not quite simple.
Yeah, 我跟一些朋友去的. Yeah, so you can drop the 是 here. Yeah. But as long as you have the the. So the the is out of the two is the most important. Yeah. 我跟一些朋友去. And because I wanted to relax, so even this, you could say this. 我是因为想放松一下去的. So 放松一下 is to relax. So even that, this is almost an entire sentence. Put between the 是 and the. It's the why. So if someone asks me this question, they would likely say, 你是为什么去的? 你是为什么去的? And I replace 为什么 with 因为想放松一下去的. Does that make sense? Simon?
一下 when that added to the phone song.
一下 it softens.
Okay, yeah.
放松一下.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the phone song's
To take a
relax.
break.
Yeah, okay.
And then here is where we see an example of a different what. So what did you do at the park? So why is this different? It's because I have old information now, known information. That is that you went to the park. And now the new information is what. So we're focusing on that over the old information. So we had a picnic together. Yetan is a noun and also a verb. So yetan means a picnic and it also means two picnic. So we had a picnic together. What did we do at the park? 我们是一起去野餐的. So that is the what. And let's have a look at these two different whats together. If I just say, what did you do yesterday? This is a general question. I don't have any information. And so I can say, my friends and I had a picnic in the park. 我和朋友一起去了公园野餐. If you wanted to, you could put the le at the very end because野餐 is also a verb. 我和朋友一起去公园野餐了. But you notice the difference because it's a general question and I don't have any information when I ask it. We use the le. Here I already have some information and then we need to be specific. And so we use should. So that's the comparison. Does that make sense?
I don't know how to remember it in conversation.
Well, yeah. Well, this is the thing. It obviously, as with many things, it's not going to be the end of the world. If you say, "我们一起去野餐了," it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's also understanding the other side of what is coming at you. But why did they say 是的 there? Well, in this sentence, which seems the same, they said "le." So at least we can get some idea of why. So there is another way that we use should done. But before I move on to that, do we have any questions? I know we're going to have a speed pause. Okay. So the way that we've used it here is to focus on new information. A similar way, but different, is when we use it with adjectives and we use it, we can say, to categorize something. So let's have a look at this sentence. So you you've probably seen both of these sentences. 上帝很仁慈，上帝是仁慈的。And they would both be translated as God is merciful and God is merciful. But the one here, and we'll demonstrate this even more a bit later on. When we say this, what we're doing is just describing the noun. We can say qualifying it with an adjective. So for example, tell me some things that you like about God. So I qualify the noun God with the adjective 仁慈. So it's saying he has this quality of mercifulness. Whereas here, 他是仁慈的, I'm actually categorizing him. So, for example, if someone said, why does God let people burn in hell forever? Well, he wouldn't do that because 他是仁慈的. He's 仁慈的, merciful, and not, by implication, not cruel, not evil, not sadistic. He's in this category of merciful. So I've used 是 and 的 to emphasize this category. And here's another example. 大卫很高, David is tall. 大卫是高的, David is tall. If I can say that David has this quality of tallness. So I'm just using this adjective to qualify this person. 大卫很高. But if I said to you, so the opposite of 高 is high. If I said to you, 你认识大卫吗? And you say, oh yeah, 对, 大卫很矮. I said, 大卫是高的. So you have the category of short, the category of tall, and I'm saying, no, he's not in that category. He's in this category. So it basically, in a nutshell, has the effect of emphasizing something. So we're emphasizing by categorizing. So something else I want to mention is 很. Notice we just say David is tall. We don't say David is very tall. 很 is an extremely weak, very, no offense. And is often not even translated into English. So that's why we don't say David is very tall. It's just David is tall. By the way, the is part of the gao. So this is the thing about Chinese adjectives, which is like a little side note. They are already like verbs. So for us, tall is just an adjective, but gao means is tall. So that's why we don't need, we'll come into this, that's why we don't need da wei, shi, gao. So we're very tempted to translate the is to shi, but the Chinese doesn't need that. So it's often not translated into English, but one exception, one of the few exceptions, is colours. And this is actually a good way to see what the difference is between these two structures. So if I said, 我的车很红, it means my car is very red. We would then translate the hun across. 我的车是红的, my car is red. So we can now see exactly what it means when we say, if we just say something 很 something, or 是的. So when I say 我的车很红, I'm qualifying it with an adjective, and then I'm actually telling you the degree of redness. So I'm saying my car has the quality of redness, and then I'm telling you how deep that red goes. Whereas when I say 我的车是红的, even if I'm not actually saying this, what I'm actually saying is 我的车是红的, 不是 orange, 不是 yellow, 不是 green, 不是 blue, 不是 purple, 是红的. So I'm categorizing, I'm emphasizing it over all these other categories. Does that make sense? So that is the difference between these two sentence structures. In the first one, when I just use home, I'm telling you that the noun has a particular quality, in this case red. When I use 是的, I'm telling you that the noun belongs to the category. It is red, and not any other category. Not any other category. And this applies whether or not we translate home across into English. So here, qualify the noun. Again, I'm telling you a quality about God. He has his quality of masterfulness. Emphasize the adjective with shi and de. I'm telling you he belongs to a particular category and not some other category. So that's why we use those different sentence structures. And then here's something that we, two common errors with shi and de, or just shi. So the two on the left are correct. 上帝很仁慈 and 上帝是仁慈. But we wouldn't say 上帝是很仁慈 or 上帝是仁慈. So how do we fix these two? Well, if we start with the bottom one, we just add the de. And now these two are exactly the same sentence. Here, we also add the de. But these two sentences are not the same. So remember, whatever goes in between shi and de gets emphasized. So now 很 is between the shi and the de. So 上帝是很仁慈 means God is very merciful. So we just think of shi and de as when you drop something in between it, that thing gets emphasized. So this applies with any adjective. So we wouldn't say 这是很重要. We should either say 这很重要 or 这是重要的 or 这是很重要的. Or we what else? 这部车是很快. We either say 这部车 or 这辆车很快 or 是很快的. Does that make sense? Simon?
How much emphasis does it, if you say that 上帝是很仁慈的, is that very, is it like if you say it over the top, is it like bombastic, is it overblown, is it a little bit, everything should 100?
Yeah.
Is it that way if you put it in between, if you use 100 all the time between the should and the? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't be overblown, but it's just like in English, if we keep using emphatic
Yeah.
structures, then nothing
Yeah.
is emphatic. Yeah. Obviously, to a Chinese speaker, they wouldn't need to think, do I want to use this here at this point? Because you know how a lot of things in our mother tongue are, what do you call it? You just know by feeling. And that's how a Chinese person would use this. But for us, we would have to stop and think, do I actually want to say 上帝很仁慈 or do I want to say 上帝是很仁慈 do I really need to emphasize it? So, yeah. Okay. So, is there anything else? No. Any other questions about le versus shi? Okay.
Very well explained, thank you.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it made sense. Yeah. Okay, so just because of time, we won't have the exercise with the split up, but let's try and go through them. So, this is a general what question. What did you do last week? How do you think I would say I went to China? What did you do last week? Sure.
去了中国.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So I have no information here, but here, where did you go for your holiday? Let's say that.
我是中国去的，我是去中国的。
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, 我是去中国. Why? Because the information that the person who asked you the question has is, I went on holiday somewhere, then I supply some extra information. I went to China, so I put that extra information.
I was going to say 我在中国去了，
我在.
我在中国去了。
Well, because 在 would mean you're already there. So 我在中国 means I'm in China. Yeah. Whereas you need to say 我是去中国. 我去中国. That would be good. How did you get to the meeting today? Choose any method of transport. What would you say?
自
Yeah, go on.
我是自行车来的。
Yeah, yeah, 骑自行车。
哦，骑
骑 yeah,
骑
road bus,
自行
yeah.
车。
不是骑自行车去。Yeah, 来的, yeah. Just as a side point, you know that brief video that we watched? So that is from the channel that we talked about before, Chinese Zero to Hero. And he mentions a great point about also how we ask this question. If you say, and I wish I'd known this years ago, if you say to someone, needs a malai, it has the meaning of, what are you doing here? Almost as to say you weren't invited. When I heard this, I thought back to all of the awkward interactions I had with people. I said, 炎弟兄邀请我. Oh, okay. So if I ask this question, I shouldn't say, 你今天怎么来? I should say, 你今天是怎么来的? So all these little nuances that can help save our friendships with people. So yeah, maybe we could do this as homework. So, yeah. There's your answers. So what did you do last week? I went to China. 我去了中国. Where did you go for your holiday? I went to China. 我是去中国. So this is what I mean by, for us, it's the same sentence. I went to China. I went to China. And this is what I can have us wondering sometimes. Why did the Chinese person say it this way on that occasion, but say it this way on another occasion? So at least, even though it takes a bit of practice for us, at least we'll know why when we hear it. And then, so lastly, Ling, which remember means different. So in the Bible teach book, remember that? It had this sentence: 容许苦难发生跟促使苦难发生是两回事. And it basically means there is a difference between allowing suffering to happen and causing it. But if you have your pleco or your line, can someone look up 两回事? So this is actually pleco.
Sometimes it's two quite different things, two unrelated matters.
Yeah, exactly. So if we were to translate it with that in mind, allowing suffering to happen, 容许苦难发生, and 跟 causing it, 促使苦难发生是两回事, two completely different things. This is where we can contrast the two things. So allowing suffering to happen and causing it 是两回事, are two completely different things. So another way we could say this is using Li. So maybe one person could look up 一回事, and another person 另一回事. So 容许苦难发生是一回事, 促使苦难发生是另一回事.
One and the same thing.
Is that's 一回事?
Yeah.
Yeah, one and the same thing. Or is there another one?
One thing.
One thing, yeah. Did you look at 另一回事? Yeah, what does 另一回事mean? Right.
Different matter.
Yeah, different matter. So if you were to kind of use the same wording for both of those, 一回事 would be one thing, 另一回事 is a completely different thing. So what we'd be saying here is, allowing suffering to happen is one thing, causing it to happen is an entirely different thing. This is what 另一回事 means. So you can use those two together. You can either use 两回事 or you can separate the two. 容许苦难发生是一回事，促使苦难发生是另一回事。And here's another example. Owning a Bible is one thing, but understanding it is an entirely different thing. So this is actually from one of the Watchtowers. 有自己的圣经是一回事，明白其中的内容是另一回事。Just like a quick bonus vocabulary thing. You know we hear 其中 all the time. 其 just means that. So it means that which was referred to earlier on in the sentence. So I've already said, and 中 means inside, in the middle. So I've already said 圣经. When I say 其中, oh sorry, 其 means it, something I've already mentioned. So I'm saying 明白 the contents that's in it. So this is what I'm saying with 其中, in it, but backwards. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because we see 其中 all the time, and that's what it actually means. You've mentioned something, and then later on you refer back to using 其中. So we say, 感谢上帝赐下圣经和帮助我们明白其中的原则, helping us to understand the principles inside it. Yeah. So I think that is it. Yeah. So just one homework today. So in line, look up some example sentences with 另一回事, and then see what you can. So any questions about anything today? That was a bit of a quick fire round. Sure.
Sorry, can you just explain that? Sorry, 其中 again. I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So let me go back. So, actually, have you got your Draco dictionary? Because I don't think I actually explained
Yeah.
that well. So if you look up 其中, and then if you tap 其, and can you just read out what some of the definitions are?
Is he that such?
That.
Referring to no definite personal thing?
Yeah. So go on with that, Simon.
Yeah, I was going to say that, the fourth definition referring to no definite personal thing, so we use that for like scriptures, like among that, in like the sentence, like 其中, like a word or something that's not tangible. Like, because I always get confused between 其中 and 当中, you know, like 当中 is a physical location, you know, and 其中 is not non-tangible sort of thing. I could be wrong, I don't know, but that's how I hear it. But
Yeah. 其中 would be当中. I know I can only go by what I normally hear.
Yeah, that's
It's not like you say Jesus stood in the midst of them. It usually uses 当中 for that, and then 其中 for something like this. So basically, 其 means it's referring to a noun that's already been mentioned. So 其 just means it or that, and in this case, then I'm referring to 圣经, and then 中 means inside. So it's like I'm saying, if I were to reverse it, owning a Bible is one thing, 明白其中, understanding the content inside, 中, it, 其 is something else. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's inside.
So it's instead of saying like 明白圣经的内容, you can say 明白其中.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I've already. So as long as I've mentioned it first, I can then use 其中 to refer back to it.
To the noun you've mentioned.
Yeah, so I can avoid. I don't have to repeat it now.
Yeah, sorry. So you said Danjong means to be in their midst.
Yeah. At least that's where I've seen it the most. Yeah. Yes, that's
Yeah, I think you answered the question because I thought, I found the Chinese word for the English it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is this and it is that, and then lots of jokes were coming out to me. But now I say, you've got to mention the subject. So, 要自己的神经学，这个神经 or qi or 你的汽车 or 你的自行车 you know, like, or well, it's not tangible. So 神经 that sugar, like that thing, and then qi zhong, and that's it. It's only used with non-tangible stuff. So you can't cross to okay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
When you said the Chinese word for it, that just made me realise a better way to explain it. You could just say 其中 means 其中的内容 we could just say 它里面的内容。
里面
它里面的内容。Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, the end.
Thank you.
That's
funny,
really good.
like,
Thank you.
I don't think,
That shirt
apart
and the
from
dirt.
the 你是怎么来的 and 我是, I think I knew that for just that sentence, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I didn't know
First
that.
week in January.
I didn't really understand why,
Why?
or to use that structure with those other questions.
Yeah.
So I think apart from that one sentence only, I must have answered. Like I must have been wrong all the other times when I've been talking to people.
Yeah, I use.
Yeah,
I remember getting told off for using should blah 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 too much. You know, and so I thought I'm not really sure. I'm gonna back off of that. I think but I didn't know how weak hun was. But you could say it twice, like what a church. You know, and it's like it's quite red, you know, but it's not.
But I always thought in the past everything either had to be le or war, like we've done it.
Right.
So unless there's a le or a war in it, I would not think it was. Or unless there was like you said yesterday or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But so to do it that way, so I have to get my head. Goodness knows what we're saying to people.
I know.
This
I wonder how you say it.
When I learn something new, my mind immediately goes back to all of those interactions that I had on the So I've got all these cards to send to people, apology cards.
My Chinese got better to the extent that I know I've insulted you.
Can we have that conversation again?
It just shows you if someone's learning English and they're very like rude to you or something.
Oh, yeah.
That never ever to take it personally ever because it's so delicate. It's so like the language
Well, English has a lot of
skills,
mitigation
isn't it?
words. Like, I'm just doing this. I don't mind, you know.
Exactly. So I had a couple of students, English, learning English, and actually their English was already good. And I would say something, and they'll go, "What?" And then I would have to say to them, "Oh, actually, it's quite impolite just to say."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, really? And they'll say, "Oh, how do you say?" And I said, "You'd have to say all that stuff zeros."
Take care, Rachel. See you.
And I said, "Yeah, all that stuff that you just said." You have to say, "Oh, excuse me, could you say that again?"
Yeah, which is a very
Yeah, I'm sorry.
English, isn't it?
You can't say what. You can't say what.
Yeah.
You can't say what. And you could, yeah.
So, you taught English to Chinese. I remember you saying that it's like business.
Yeah, yeah.
But have you taught Chinese professionally? Or
No.
it seems okay.
When you get lots of QR on the cruise ships.
Oh,
that's good.
I've never heard of most of what you're talking about.
They've gone out. I've gone out. He went out. I've got a clue. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't grammar. I just don't really.
Well done,
So
yeah.
yeah, you got
Oh.
Bye, Ruth. Hello. Yeah, I do. But I don't remember your name.
Capucine.
Oh, Capucine. But I do remember
I was
you.
thinking cappuccino, cappuccino.
To your wedding.
Or maybe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what's that?
Oh,
Really? Are you related? Related? No?
So where's your husband?
In Cameroon. Yeah.
Oh, so you just got married and now you're over here and left him.